Hi guys, give me a few seconds to do the audio thingy on my laptop and then we can get started, okay? 3, 2, 1. What's up everyone? Welcome back to my YouTube channel / my podcast. I am the Marketing Nomad. My name is Prithvi Madhukar. In this audio, we're going to be talking about the simplest yet the most powerful question, in my opinion, that will help you change the way you show up for your life. Now, before we get into what the question actually is, we've got to do a little bit of a story time. Okay, so for those of you who may not know, I am a writer. I have been for most of the life that I have lived up until now. Actually, I wrote my first composition when I was 7 years old, and my teacher at the time told me that I did have a talent and I should pursue it. And I did. And something that is very inherent in us writers is we try to find something in what seems like nothing for other people. And I think something that I have done all my life is to ask myself, well, what's the story? You know, even if it's a pencil falling to the floor or a car driving by me really fast or watching people at the airport, I've always asked myself, well, what's the story? What can I weave out of this based on my imagination and my creativity? And I've loved doing that. I've done that all of my life. I still do it even to this day. You know, whatever seems like an ordinary situation or an ordinary circumstance or something that just happens on an everyday level, yeah, my mind tries to weave a story out of it. So something that I've asked myself all my life is, what's the story? Now, something that I didn't do until 2015 was apply that question in a way that changed the way I show up in my life. And let's get a little bit deeper into that. So in 2015, I was down in the dumps. I was rock bottom, as people would say. Honestly, I could not see a way out. I was in a field that I could not see a future in. I didn't know how to get out of it. I didn't know what to do. Honestly, every decision that I had made in the last couple of years leading up to that point had been very, very detrimental and frankly led me further and further away from the life that I wanted, I guess I would say. And I have to tell you, I will take responsibility for that. I made a mess, I did. And I got to also tell you that there was a lot of confusion in my personal life at that point in time, which was seeping into every other aspect of my life. And we've talked about this in another audio as well. For me, because there was a severe lack of self-love during those few years of my life, I was constantly not choosing myself. I just kept chasing after the wrong people. I just kept making one decision after the other that did not keep my feelings, my needs, my wants into consideration. And frankly, when you keep doing that over an extended period of time, when you don't choose yourself consistently, what happens is the life that you end up leading becomes very, 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 very far from the life that is most aligned to you and a life that could bring you peace. And so at that point in my life, things were really messed up. And because it was messed up as a consequence of the decisions that I had made for myself all throughout the previous couple of years, I had also slowly stopped trusting myself when it came to making decisions that were good for me. And one thing that I will say is my pattern of behavior of not choosing myself was so strong at that point, was very, very powerful. And even though in my mind, I knew I shouldn't be doing that, like I shouldn't chase after people who, had an unhealthy dynamic with me, me included, me as part of that dynamic, going after them, or, even if I was mistreated, even if I did not feel that my needs, my wants were being met, keep going back because I thought that was just how I needed to show up because I felt a certain way about them And I did this for all sorts of relationships, like platonic or romantic. Yeah, I have made plenty of mistakes in that area of not choosing myself. And so at that point, I had hit rock bottom. I frankly did not feel safe enough to ask for help at that point in time. I didn't even know who I could turn to as well, because I didn't think anybody could even understand the state that I was in. And so at that point, looking back at the decisions that I made for myself, I couldn't even bring myself to trust that I could make good decisions for myself. And we'll probably talk about that in another podeo, because that itself was a journey on its own for me to learn how to trust myself. But at this point, you've got to understand, I couldn't trust myself. I didn't know what to do. The life that I was leading was severely lacking peace, and I didn't even have a starting point that I could begin with. And so one such situation I found myself in, and I was about to repeat my pattern of behavior. And my mind, one part of it knew I shouldn't be doing it, because that decision had brought me a lot of anguish and pain previously, and multiple times previously as well. And so in my mind, my pattern of behavior was so strong, but at the same time, I knew it was not what I had to do. But at the same time, also, there's a lot of things happening at the same time, okay? At the same time, I didn't know what I could do differently or how to break that pattern of behavior, because it was so strong. I cannot emphasize on how strong that pattern of behavior was. And so at that point, I asked myself very angrily, okay, because I caught myself about to do the same pattern of behavior. And I remember so clearly, I asked myself, well, what's the story you want to have for yourself? Is this what you want your life story to be? Is this what you want your story to be? That you keep doing the same thing again and again and again and again and again. And I remember I was very angry with myself, because it was just, I was already at rock bottom. I could not go any lower. And frankly, I was just fed up of putting myself constantly in the same situation again and again and again. And so when I asked myself this question at that point in time, like, what's the story that you want to tell yourself, a couple of years from now? Is it that you were just in the same pattern of behavior, constantly putting yourself in pain and anguish and situations that did not serve you? Is that the story that you want to tell yourself? And that was such a light bulb moment for me, and I could honestly just cry talking about it, because one, that question has changed my life infinitely better today. And I'll show you in how, the different ways that you can use it for your life. But it was that moment when I could see some light out of my situation. That question dragged me out towards the light, and I'm so grateful for this question. So the question was, what's the story? And in that moment, the answer that I gave myself was, no, this is not the story that I want for myself. I don't want to be, a few years from now telling the same story again and again, that I kept chasing after the wrong people. I kept going back to where I was mistreated. I kept going back to where my needs were not met. I kept going back and making excuses for things that should never have been excused. And so in that moment, I asked myself, then what's the story? What's the story that you want to tell yourself a few years from now? And at that point, the story that I wanted to tell myself, and the answer that I gave myself, was not this. Just not this. Anything but this. And so as I started to think deeper about that question, I started to answer it a little bit better. But the first answer that I gave myself at that point in time was not this. Anything but this. And so that itself was very powerful for me to understand that whatever it is, I should not be doing whatever I had done. And I could do anything else other than that. Anything else. I would be fine with anything other than that, except the narrative that had been forming for the last few years of my life. And that was very, very powerful because at that point in time marks the, oh, I'm getting so emotional about this. That is the moment that my life shifted 180 degrees for me. It just flipped. And, you know, for people, I know that there are a lot of people, you know, you might be finding yourself in situations and a place where you don't think that you can get out of. And I gotta tell you, it's possible to get out of any situation. It is possible, okay? And for me, at that point in time, I didn't believe it, but this question made me believe that I could turn my life around, and I had hit rock bottom at that point, you know? And so for me, the reason why I love this question so much, this question is so dear to my heart, is because it marked the pivoting point of my life. And frankly, my life from that phase has been so different. And at every given stage of my life, I have always, regardless of what the situation is, what the instance is, however bad things have gotten for me, or whatever uniqueness comes with the situation, I have always asked myself, what's the story? What's the story, Prit? And that itself has put me in a position to decide what to do next, or how to get out of that situation, or if I'm confused or I don't have faith in my thought process at that point in time. This question has always shifted it. So back to the story, at that point, you know, I said, not this, anything but this. And that itself was very powerful because the next steps that I took from that, I started walking away from the people who did not align with me anymore. And it was painful. I gotta tell you, it was very, very painful walking away, going against what had become my natural instinct at that point in time because of that severe lack of self-love. So to move away from that, to get away from that, to start focusing on creating a life that aligned with me, it started from that moment on. So every single point from that moment on, I kept asking myself, okay, well, if engineering is not what you want to do, what's the story? Then the answer that I gave myself at that point was, well, I just want something that I'm passionate about, that I can see myself doing for the next 40 years of my life. And so then I started trying different fields, trying to see which one I could relate to, which one aligned better with me, so on and so forth. So I may not have gotten the complete answer at that point, you know, but it did help me figure at least my next immediate step. And this question is just that powerful. Every time you find yourself in a repeated pattern of behavior, you find yourself unable to get out of a situation, or you find yourself so embedded in an instinct that is working against you, I would say ask yourself, what's the story? What's the story that you see for yourself? Few years from now, what do you want to look back and tell yourself what you did during this period of time? And I gotta tell you, that itself changes the way that you view your current situation. All right? And I'm gonna give you a couple of examples just so that you can apply this in different areas. Like I said, I've applied this in various areas, and we're gonna get into that, okay? So the first area that I do want to talk about, and probably the first time that I'm going to be talking about on camera on my YouTube channel, is love, romantic relationships, all right? So I have applied this question for that as well, multiple times in the last couple of years. I can't even begin to tell you how many times I've applied this. So every single time I don't feel that reciprocity, or, you know, with somebody that I'm talking to in a romantic sense, or even, you know, as a potential friend, I guess I would say, works anyway, guys, anyway. I don't feel that reciprocity. I don't feel the energy matching, and I feel that it's just me making an effort. I ask myself, you know, in that moment of frustration and anger that I do feel, I ask myself, what's the story? What's the story that you want to tell yourself? And the answer that I give myself at that point in time is, well, not this. I don't want to be chasing someone for a text or a call. I don't want to constantly keep reminding someone of how they should treat me. I don't want to put myself in a situation where I'm constantly questioning if my needs are enough. I don't want to be putting myself in a situation where I don't feel loved. I don't feel peace. I don't feel the natural joy that comes with being in a healthy friendship or a healthy relationship with someone. And so in those moments, as hard as it has been, this question has given me the courage to walk away for the simple reason that it's not the story that I want. And for me, I think one of the reasons why this question works so well is, especially when you are driven with instinct or it's a repeated pattern of behavior, it's hard for you to see what's right for you. But when you ask yourself, what's the story? It's you detaching from what you're going through right now. It's you putting yourself in your future self. So you're kind of, taking a step back from what you're going through. You're emotionally detaching yourself. Yeah, that's a word. That's a word. I don't know why I doubted if that was a word. You're emotionally detaching yourself from this situation, and you're going into the future, and you're viewing the entire situation as a third person. And that's also what I personally do while I'm journaling sometimes as well, going back and viewing. And the reason why it helps is because you're viewing it as a third person. Now it's somebody else who's going through something, and you're watching, well, what's the story that I want for that person? And you've got that love for that person. As much as you may not feel it in that moment of time sometimes, when you go out, when you come outside, when you're watching through the window and you're seeing, well, what's the story I want that for that person? The natural empathy, the natural compassion, the natural love does come for the version of yourself that you are living. And that's why I think this question works so well. So in the respect of love, if you find yourself in a repeated pattern of behavior where you are chasing emotionally unavailable people, or you are going in for friendships which feel very one-sided, you are accepting or tolerating behavior, whether it is familial relationships, platonic, or even romantic, you are tolerating a standard of behavior that has been detrimental to your mental and emotional health. Ask yourself, what's the story? What's the story that you want to tell yourself a few years from now that you just kept giving in and expending all your energy for a one-sided relationship, regardless of whether it's platonic, familial, or romantic? Or, do you want to say that I got out of it? I did not feel that it was serving me. I did not feel that it was aligned to me. So I got out of it and I found something that aligned with me. I found people who genuinely cared for me, who naturally were able to give me what I needed and were able to help me feel secure and grounded and peaceful. What's the story that you want to tell yourself? All right, so that's with respect to relationships. I'm going to give you 2 more examples just so that you can see how you can place this question, because it works for every single area. Every time you're confused about what to do next, you don't know what to do next, you are trying to break a repeated pattern of behavior that isn't serving you, or you are just feeling lost, or you just generally want to find out what you would want to do. Yeah, this question works. So with respect to business, let's talk a little bit about that as well. So when I was in the dumps, trying to figure out my career, this was it. This was the question that I asked myself. Well, what's the story? What's the story that you want to tell yourself? Do you want to tell yourself the story of how you were wallowing in self-pity, that you went on to get a job in engineering, you were unsatisfied, you were unfulfilled, you were unhappy, and that translated to other aspects of your life, and you were just very unhappy with your life? Or do you want a story where you got out of it, you took your time and found what aligned best with you, and you kept pursuing it, you didn't take it for granted, and you finally made your mark? And that's where I am today. That's the story I lived. And I couldn't have lived this story if, frankly, I didn't answer this back then to myself. I told myself, no, I want to find something that I'm passionate about. I want to see myself working with peace and joy for the next 40 years of my life. And, hoots to people who say you can't do something that you love and make money out of it. No, I don't want to believe in that narrative. I don't want that story. I want to create a story where, yes, I'm going to be passionate about what I do. I'm going to find what I'm passionate about and also earn, a substantial amount, or rather fulfill the lifestyle that I'm looking for. I'm going to do that. I'm going to create that story for myself. That's the story that I want. And that itself has pushed me in a lot of ways to keep pursuing whatever it is that I do today. And today I gotta say, yes. Yes, there have been ups and downs, but at the same time, at every down that I've felt along this journey as well, I've kept asking myself, well, what's the story? The story of you giving up or walking away, or you self-pitying yourself, wondering why things are not working for you? Or do you want the story of where you kept putting in your hard work, you kept pivoting, you kept trying to identify what was going wrong and kept trying to fix it, appreciating your little accomplishments along the way and just finding your path as it was happening? Is that the story you want, or the other one? And I always pointed to this story. I wanted where I knew not everything is going to work out, but at the same time, I'm going to push through. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to see this through, and so on and so forth. So that's how I would use this for your career or your professional life, your business as well. That's how it has helped me. What's the story that you want? Or more importantly, more powerfully, what's the story that you don't want? Because that's how I started, right? How I started was identifying the story that I didn't want, because I said, not this, anything but this. So that was me identifying the story that I didn't want, because sometimes you may not know what you want, and that's okay. I gotta tell you, sometimes you are not going to have it figured out. Sometimes what you want may not even be something that you could have perceived at that moment in time, given your the position that you're in, the situation, and the external influences, as well as whatever is hindering your mindset at that point in time. So sometimes you may not know what you do want, and that's okay. It's important to first know what you don't want and work on getting out of that, getting away from that. I think that is more powerful. I always say, I think I talked about this in another podeo as well. Don't underestimate the power of knowing what you don't want, because that itself will take you to what you do want, even though what you do want may not be what you can perceive at the moment. That was a long sentence. I have to take a deep breath for that. But hold on, we are running out of battery space on my camera. Just give me a second. I'm gonna fix that and then we shall get back, okay? Alrighty, I am back. So what I was saying was, sometimes you may not know what you do want, and that's okay. As long as you know what you don't want, use that as a starting point for you to figure out what you do want. Start by moving away from what you don't want. And this is something that I've talked about even in my book, 0 to 4 Figures as well. The first step towards anything is walking away from what does not serve you. And for you to be able to do that, you have to first recognize what is not serving you. So anytime you ask yourself this question, what's the story? What's the story that you want to have lived? And in that moment, if you say, not this, anything but this, try to envision what a life without that would be, what the story could look like. Try to envision taking different steps that you would have otherwise taken. And something that I've written over here is, sometimes you may have to envision different scenarios, different stories, and that's okay. What you have to do at that point in time is pick the story that makes you feel the best. That's it. It's just as simple as that. I've always kept telling this, what feels aligned to you, very simply put, just feels good. Okay? And so think about different possible scenarios that you could live, different stories that you could live. Pick the one that feels the best to you. Okay? And envision what actions you would have taken for that story to form, and take those actions. I think the minute you understand what you don't want, it becomes easier for you to do the things that bring you what you want. All right, so recognizing that is first and foremost the most important thing. And when you ask yourself this question, I think it's easier to identify what you don't want. And as you keep digging deeper, as you keep asking yourself, well, if this is not the story that I do want, then what is the story that I do want? How could this possibly play out? What are different ways that this could play out? And so that's a little bit of visualization, I guess I would say. And so something that I've written here is, when you keep asking yourself this question, what's the story that I want? What's the story that I want? Again, because you are visualizing a particular way things could go, it helps you be more confident in this moment of time to take the steps towards that story. And it's a different thing whether or not that story plays out, because again, there are going to be numerous factors surrounding that, and there are going to be different permutations and combinations that could come out of it. But the point is, today you are able to visualize that, and that itself gives you the courage that you need. And the minute, maybe a twist comes in, I guess I would say, again, ask yourself at that point, what's the story that I envision from here? How do I want to take this from here? What is the story that I wish to have lived from this moment of time? And keep asking yourself this at every time that things are starting to feel not so good. Because like I always say, and I'm saying this again, what feels good to you is what is aligned to you. What does not feel good to you is not aligned to you, and you need to get away from that. You need to get out of that. And we'll probably talk about this in another podeo in depth about, walking away and stuff like that. But yeah, the basis of this entire podeo is, one, it can be used for any situation, all right? Number two, I'm just looking down at my notes so that I don't miss anything, okay? Number two is it gives you the courage to take tough steps, because the minute your mind understands that this is not what I want, it becomes easier for you to reject the steps that you would have ordinarily taken. It becomes easier for you to say no to that repeated pattern of behavior that could be putting you in that repeated situation again and again and again, because now your mind is clear on what it does not want. You're bringing that focus, that clarity, that nope, we don't want this. So we're going to strengthen ourselves, we're going to strengthen our mind, and then move away from it. We may know what those steps might be, we may not know what those steps might be, but all the mind knows at this point in time is it has to walk away, and it does, okay? So basically this question gives you that added courage. And the reason why I stress on this so much is because I've been there multiple times in my life where this repeated pattern of behavior, it made me feel so helpless. It made me just feel so helpless. Like at the back of my mind, I knew I shouldn't be doing it, but at the same time, it was just, I wouldn't say force of habit. I think I just kept giving myself excuses after excuses. And the minute I asked myself this question, things just shifted for me. It just shifted, because I think at that point I didn't have the courage to do what was right for me, and more importantly, I could not envision a future that had a different outcome. But the minute I asked myself this question, I could envision myself deserving better. I could envision a better life for myself. I could envision things working out for me in a different way. And that itself gave me the courage to walk away, because I think another aspect, and we'll probably get into this in another podeo, is when people say, always go towards what you deserve. I don't think it's as simple as that. I really think there's a lot of layers to that. I think that oftentimes we know what we deserve. It's just we don't believe what we deserve is going to come to us. So we spend a lot of time hanging on to what we don't deserve, because we think, well, at least it's there, at least it's in front of us, at least we can see, think, and feel it. But I think with this question, the reason why I perceive this question to be so powerful is because it provides a different narrative for your story, and through that narrative, it helps you believe that it is possible. Because if your mind is able to perceive it, in some way, you tend to believe that, yeah, okay, it can happen this way. And as time goes by, as you strengthen your belief in that, you believe that you deserve better, or you believe you can do it. You believe that future is a possibility, and I think that's very powerful. I really think that is what makes this question so powerful. It's giving you the opportunity to see what your life would be if you continued down this path, or it also gives you the opportunity to see how different your life could turn out, for the better or the worse. Like I said, have multiple scenarios, have different stories. No one is stopping you, right? So I think it gives you a spectrum of how your life could turn out. And that option that you have, okay, with this very question, is, I think, what gives one the confidence to pick the option that feels best to them, okay? And even if you don't have the confidence to pick what is best for you, it does give you the courage to walk away from the worst case scenario that you've kept repeating. It gives you the courage to keep walking away from that, to not repeat your patterns of behavior related to that situation. So this can be used for any situation. That's the reason why I love it so much. I have used it for every single thing. Like, I'm not even kidding. Recently, as if you've seen my previous podeos, but if you haven't, well, I've been struggling a little bit to focus on my physical health. It's nothing major. Like, I've been sick for 2 months, in the sense food poisoning, then there was severe viral flu, then there was food poisoning again. And honestly, it started out with allergies and then eye allergies, which I'm still recovering from. And yeah, basically it's just been a lot that I've been dealing with. And the primary reason for that was burnout. I had overworked myself, and at that point, I just sat and I asked myself, well, what's the story, Prit? What's the story that you do want to have for yourself? I mean, do you want to be the kind of person, who you just overworks, and then you burn out, and then you overwork again, and then you burn out, and so on and so forth, and have this repeated pattern of behavior? Is that what you want? Is that the story that you want to live? Or do you want to be this person who has a healthy balance between their work as well as their personal life, as well as giving themselves good breaks, having that healthy balance between all aspects of their life? What is the story that you want to live? And at that point, I had a very clear answer. I don't want this. I don't want to live the story where I overwork and then I burn out, and then I overwork again and then I burn out, and then that cycle repeats. No, I don't want that. What I do want is the story where I live a healthy balance between every aspect of my life, and that's what I'm working towards. So I guess I would say this question, it works in every aspect. Every time you feel yourself lost, you feel yourself confused, you feel yourself wondering what to do next, or you find yourself feeling helpless, that there's something you want to do but you can't seem to bring yourself to do it, or you're unable to break a pattern of behavior that is not serving you, you're unable to get out of a situation that is not serving you, ask yourself this question. What's the story? What's the story that you wish to have lived? Okay? And this itself will put you in a much better place to understand what's the story that you don't want. And of course, as an extension for that, maybe it might take a little bit of time, but understanding what is the story that you do want for yourself as well. All right, so if you liked this podeo, please do give me a thumbs up. Please hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, because that tells you every single time I do upload a YouTube video as well as a podcast. Other than that, I am the author of 2 books. The first book is 0 to 4 Figures, Lessons Learned by a Broke CEO. Spoiler alert, that was me 4 years ago. That is available on Amazon. It is a compilation of 61 stories and lessons from my digital entrepreneurship journey. It covers topics like self-love, business strategy, marketing strategy, positive mindset, growth mindset, success mindset, so on and so forth. My second book is called Self-Loved. It is a compilation of 1,000 journal prompts that help with healing, growth, and self-discovery. It covers various topics like emotion management, trauma healing, inner child healing, what else? Manifestation, daily gratitude, reflection, so on and so forth. Other than that, I have a series of productivity planners, trackers, and journals. They're called the Simple Series by The Marketing Nomad. They are also available on Amazon. At the time of publishing this podeo, there are 18 of them. Yes, I actually added one from last week. So there are 18 of them. The simplest way to find all of my stuff, like my books, my planners, my journals, my trackers, is to search for my name on Amazon. It's PRITHVI space MADHUKAR, and there's even an author page for me. You can just go there and see all of my stuff over there. Other than that, just as a conclusion, I do want to say that I've been where you are at, whether you are feeling lost or confused or helpless, that you're unable to break a pattern of behavior. I've been there, and I understand what you're going through, and I do want to say that even tapping on this video itself, to me, shows a lot of courage, shows a lot of strength. I think especially when we are in these situations where we don't know what to do, or it's just a repeated pattern of behavior that we've been exhibiting because it's become second nature to us and we don't know how to get out of it. All I want to say is understanding what you don't want is the first step. And the fact that you are watching this video itself tells me that there is some aspect of your life that you already recognized that you don't want. And I think that's powerful. I think you have already taken the first step. And the next step is walking away. And to understand that, to fully find the strength and the courage, you've got to understand what is the story that you don't want for yourself. So this question really helps with that. And over time, it's going to take you some time, okay? Don't expect answers to come to you immediately. It's going to take you some time. But over time, repeatedly asking yourself this question, well, if this is a story that I don't want, then what is the story that I do want? Or what is the story that could happen? What could I live through? You know, what could I look back and say I have lived through? What is the story that I could look back on? And so that would give you a couple of options. Always choose what feels best to you. If it's not hurting anyone, if it's not harming anyone, and it's just about you, I would say always choose the option that feels best to you. Choose the story that feels best to you, because the story that feels best to you is a story that you are meant to live, okay? So yeah, I just want to end with that. And this question has it's changed my life in ways that I can't even begin to express you, from the tiniest of things to the most biggest dramatic changes. I guess I would say this question has really, really helped me, and I really hope that it gives you a good starting point to, you know, use it as a way to change the way that you show up for your life. I really hope that this can give you a good starting point to create your own story, you know, and create a story that feels most aligned to who you are, because you deserve it. You absolutely deserve to live a story that feels good to you, that feels most aligned to who you are. All right? So yeah, that's pretty much it. I'll catch you in my next podeo. Bye-bye.